Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the first Town Hall Buzz. This is Jacqueline Wilmot, the Volunteer Engagement Director for Engineers Without Borders USA, and I'm really excited to have all of you on the call tonight. I'm just going to give a moment to make sure that everyone can hear me. So please use the chat feature and just chat in. I'm hoping that everyone on the call can hear me, and we'll find that out in just a few minutes. All right. I'm getting some positive responses. Excellent. So welcome once again. I'm really excited to have the first Town Hall Buzz here tonight, and hosting a variety of people. We've got staff on the line, volunteers, and a lot of people who are really engaged with EWB. So let's take a moment. We have a poll here, and I would like to just take a moment to see who is who's joining us on the call. So hopefully you can see this poll pop up on the screen if you're tuned in by computer. What is your primary role with EWB USA? We've asked a lot of our volunteer leadership to join us on the call tonight. It's kind of fun seeing the data roll in. So we'll get back to that in a second. So let me just share with you what you can expect from tonight's call. We're going to launch right in with the conference and e-learning courses and educational opportunities that we feel important to bring to your attention. I'm going to talk a bit about the results from the volunteer experience survey that was launched in the last quarter of 2019. And then we'll hear from Eric, who's going to be talking about cost sharing, and then a quick plug at the end about NCWS licensure. We always want to leave a bit of time for Q&A, and so we'll try to work that in as well towards the end of the call and right on time at the 1 hour mark. So I just want to take a moment to look at the poll. We have 58 people on the call so far, and we've got a whole lot of chapter officers, some mentors and REICs, some faculty, which is fabulous, project leads, members of the Regional Steering Committee and Council of Regional Presidents. We've got some staff on the call, and then other groups that I probably didn't provide in the multiple choice selection. So thanks everyone for doing that. It's always nice to see who's on the call. All right. So getting on to the agenda here. Just shared with you what you can expect from today. And I just want to circle back for a quick moment to just talk about the purpose of this call. We really want to provide relevant information in a live platform from a combination of both staff and volunteers who are really engaged with EWB, and you'll see that throughout this time together, we really are hoping to be informative and to bring you relevant information and to have it provided by a combination of staff and volunteers, and we're going to continue to look for that content as we move forward into the next town hall and the next set of agenda items. So a couple housekeeping items. Please keep yourself on mute. I think that's just set by default as you join the Zoom meeting. We're going to take advantage of the chat feature today. So if you were to hover over, if you can see on my screen, I hover over this menu bar, and you might see me fiddling with this tonight. there is a chat feature where you can provide any questions or comments that you might have as you're hearing certain things tonight and have some questions or want to comment on something. And we're going to have a couple staff monitoring that chat so that you can get your questions answered live. I do want to mention that we only have this hour together and not all of the questions will be answered. So please keep those questions rolling in. We're going to have a lot of different ways for you to provide those and make sure they get addressed. We'll also be recording this Town Hall Buzz. So after we get everything wrapped up tonight, we will post the recording in the e-learning tab in Volunteer Village. And then again, make sure that those questions you have, those comments are addressed and visible. So I mentioned that we have staff and volunteers on the call. We've got quite a few people and excited to have this lineup tonight. I would like to make sure that we have the agenda posted in the chat function. So if we haven't done that already, if we can do that now. The agenda was provided well in advance and a lot of people have already chimed in and asked some questions and posted on that agenda. And that's a nice place to reference some of the information that we're going to be talking about tonight, where you can go into much greater detail. All right, so with all of that kind of foundation laid, I'd like to get this Town Hall Buzz started, and I'll introduce our first guest, who's Jeff Hargis. He's the Vice Chair of the Council of Regional Presidents. He's going to be talking about the upcoming conference. Jeff, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Jacqueline. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. This is Jeff. I'm also this year the co-chair of the Conference Technical Review Committee. And the conference this year.
So let's see, Jeff, you might need to take yourself off mute.
All right.
We can't hear you if you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, I'll continue then. So anyway, the conference this year is in Reno in November, but more immediately.
Is Jeff on the call?
Can you guys hear me? I'm on the call.
Hey there, this is Anna, one of the staff members. Jack, we can hear Jeff. I'm not sure.
I can hear you.
I don't know if others can.
I can hear you, no problem.
Well, it sounds like most people can hear me, so I guess I'll go ahead and proceed. So again, the conference is in November in Reno. And right now, we're looking for proposals. If you go to our conference website, which you can get to by clicking on the slide if you have access to that, but it's also available through the EWB USA website, you'll see the areas of focus and the presentation topics for this year. I want to list a couple of the many example topics where we're really looking to get proposals this year. Climate change and resilience, agriculture, energy, sanitation, structures, diversity and inclusion. These are all areas that we had in the conference last year, and we had, I think, less than like 10 proposals around each of these areas. So hoping to see more this year. This year, we're also working to have the agenda in place earlier in the conference registration window. And so for that reason, that also means the submittal due date has moved up as well. And in fact, it's on March 6th, which is just 2 weeks from tomorrow. So it's really crunch time for us, as our past data shows that typically more than 80% of the submittals come in during the final 2 weeks. So a lot's going to be happening here in the next couple of weeks. And we really look for you, our dedicated and passionate volunteers, to share your knowledge, expertise, and experiences with the greater EWB USA community. You know, the more proposals we have, you know, the better agenda that we can put together for this year's conference. So please, if you've got an idea for a proposal, please share that knowledge and submit that proposal, and also encourage others. If you know people who've presented at a regional event that did a great job, you could encourage them to help bring that to the national conference. And I know there's a lot of officers here. If you can bring that up at your upcoming meetings and remind people that that deadline's coming up real soon, we'd appreciate it. Thanks, and that's all I had. I think e-learning's next, and I think it's Abby's going to present that.
Oh, hey, Jeff, this is Anna. I work with Abby. I'll be talking about the e-learning things that are available for volunteers. Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to be sharing this information with you all. Just out of curiosity, if you want to get active in the chat window here, just like a thumbs up or a clap or something if you have either already taken a course or you're really interested in taking one. Just curious to see what you all are thinking about these courses so far. So what I'd like to share with you is we have a couple things. First, there's a link that you can follow to learn more about the e-learning options in Volunteer Village. And these are courses that we've been developing to help prepare you for your roles and knowledge and skills that you'll need in the field as you're doing your work. They're also great resources. I know from the poll earlier, a lot of you are chapter officers. If you're looking for great ways to onboard new volunteers, these courses are excellent for helping people kind of get onboarded and sort of all in the same boat. So that's another great reason to link to these courses. And they're also, they're pretty short. So often, especially for our college students, the idea of taking courses sounds like a big, 16-week commitment, but these are micro-learning courses, so you can take them and learn a lot of things really quickly about some essential skills that you'll need, some essential knowledge that you'll need in the field, and things you'll want to share with your other chapter members. Let's see here. So in terms of accessing the courses, there's a couple things you can do. You can log into Volunteer Village and go to the e-learning tab. This is what you're seeing displayed on the screen here. On the left-hand side, that's the e-learning tab. On the right-hand side, you're looking at the top of our course catalog. So after you log into e-learning, you can go to the course catalog, and then you see a selection of courses that you can choose from. And courses they cover a variety of topics. There's some EWB USA basics. That's the introduction and volunteer orientation. Oh my goodness, I just have to pause for a second. I noticed in the chat we have Jonathan Mulligan on the chat, and he's saying that he helped with the WIMBY course. If you haven't seen the CE Core WIMBY orientation, or sorry, the WIMBY What's in My Backyard campaign, it's fantastic. And Jonathan, if you can hear me, you did a really amazing job. I was actually watching some of that earlier today. So yeah, so feel free to enjoy some of these courses. Let us know if you have questions about roles that you would need courses for, which courses support which roles, how you might use them in terms of engaging with your other chapter members, things like that. So if you have questions, please post them in the chat. You can also contact us at the education email at ewbusa.org, and I hope to see you in the courses. Thank you. I think I'm giving this over back to Jacqueline next.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks so much for providing that, Jeff and Anna. I'm going to go to our next topic here, which is the results from the Volunteer Experience Survey. So it's a pleasure to do this. As you know, EWB values each and every volunteer who contributes to the important mission of the organization. And we have the responsibility to engage equip and cultivate strong relationships with our volunteers, all of you, who really make a lasting impact. So each year we gather feedback from the Volunteer Experience Survey to help us understand the extent to which volunteers are satisfied with the overall role in the organization and make improvements in accordance. So we really listen to this. We strive for nothing less than exceptional. And most of the survey questions ask volunteers to provide ratings from 0 to 10. So we ask these questions, and then the responses can be given in a 0 to 10 rating. And when we have those 8, 9, and 10 responses, that's really what we're looking for. That's an indicator of a very positive sentiment. So 2019 marked the 3rd consecutive year to conduct this survey and ask the same kinds of questions that we have in the last couple of years. So we've been able to track some progress here. And I'm not going to provide all of the results here on this Town Hall Buzz, because that would be super boring, and I think that you can take the time looking at the agenda, click into the results and see for yourself how people responded and what some of those reports, and you can use that information in a lot of different ways. Certainly for us, it helps us understand again, the extent to which you're satisfied, and some improvements that we can make, and just how we're doing. I would like to say that we saw progress across all of the questions we asked, all of the indications of a good volunteer experience. And so I'm going to provide some of those highlights to you next. But I do encourage you to check out the comprehensive results. Again, it's linked in the agenda. And then we're going to talk about a couple of the next steps too. So what are we going to actually do based on what we are hearing? So this first chart shows positive ratings across all questions that were asked in the survey. There was a 20% increase from 2018 of volunteers who reported the ease of the volunteer process. So just simply being able to get involved, and some initial steps to take for engagement with EWB. This was followed by an increase in the belief that EWB USA provides resources needed for volunteers to be successful. And you can see as the chart goes down, the smallest increase was the opportunities for seasoned volunteers. And certainly that is a need for EWB and will also be a focus in the next Town Hall Buzz. Okay, let me move to my notes. 1 second. So the second chart demonstrates how volunteers prefer to get information. It seems like a lot of different bar charts, a lot of info, but really it was just a matter of asking how people prefer to get their information, and then we kind of divided that up by age group or expertise, just to kind of see if there were differences. And the most and least useful tools really varied by age group, but primarily what we found is that people like to get their information from people, and email newsletters tended to be the least favorite amongst all of the different tools that we provided in the survey. So people meaning staff, it could be state representatives, the regional steering committee members, or that of the like. And it really just kind of depended on the age group, but the human power was something that we found to be a common denominator. All right, So this chart demonstrates that volunteers overwhelmingly rated helping communities to meet their basic human needs as their primary motivation for volunteering. And this was the case across the board for all demographic groups. And this has also been the case. You see 2018 and 2019 results demonstrated here, but this has been the case for the last 3 years. This has always been the biggest motivator for people to get involved with EWB. So that's our common denominator. So now I'm going to move into just two charts to show some qualitative results. So there were some questions that we asked that were open-ended, and we compiled them and tried to organize them in a fashion that made sense, and we could get some patterns out of what people reported. So this chart demonstrates how volunteers reported a substantial life change through their EWB USA volunteer experience. And the three primary themes of impact were professional and personal growth, the opportunity to serve others, and relationships. And that came about in different ways, as you can see. The last chart that I'll show here, despite of, or maybe perhaps because of how passionate EWB volunteers are, we had not only the measures of impact, but also a lot of feedback on what we could be doing better. And we're always looking for this. This is how we can really help to make change and make adjustments. So the primary categories here are process-related changes, so the volunteer engagement cycle. So it's interesting. On the one hand, there was a huge increase on the ease of getting involved with EWB and kind of that volunteer journey, but this was also one of the biggest things that was reported as something that could be better. Next was the chapter and operational related support. So we heard a lot about how chapters can use more support. And then finally, systems. And so Volunteer Village and our website were some things that people provided some feedback and areas of improvement for us. So our next steps, and again, I just want to mention that, jumping ahead, that I'm going to talk about some next steps here just for 2 minutes, and that's by no means what is collectively and comprehensively being done at EWB in 2020. We have a whole lot of priorities, a whole lot of plans, but this is just to give you a little snapshot and to help kind of connect the dots between what volunteers have said and what we are hoping to do with those specific needs. So first thing is person to person. You heard me say that people like to hear from people. They like to get their information from human beings. And so this town hall buzz was in direct correlation of that finding and really hoping to bring about these informational sessions in a very human and live type of platform. We'll be conducting an audit in Volunteer Village and the Volunteer Opportunities Board, where we really want to get a better understanding of the collective user experience and to make adjustments accordingly. We know that this system is not perfect. We've come a long way, but again, it's not perfect, and there's a whole lot of ideas that have been brought forth. This is more about really crafting a path forward where we can prioritize our adjustments in Volunteer Village to really make it the best experience for all of you and to achieve our aligned goals. In terms of the operations and some of the things we talked about with chapter support and you know, that volunteer journey, we're going to leverage the help of our volunteer leadership by conducting regular chapter check-ins. This will be largely done through the amazing support of our regional steering committees, our state representatives, who will have a more personal connection with our chapters to assess the health of the chapters, and then also to provide some support. So that support could come in with leadership, fundraising, succession planning, onboarding and tools, accountability. We're also going to be putting forth a new chapter officer agreement that will help with accountability and some of those roles and responsibilities, and also getting people up to speed with what is expected of them and how we can support them to best do their work. I also want to mention regarding chapters is that in 2019, we were able, with the successful 2.0 fundraising campaign, to raise adequate funds and for the board of directors to approve the cost sharing approach that will now be delivered in 2020. We believe this will be a huge lift from chapters for a lot of the fundraising needs that has always been a burden. And we want to acknowledge that and know that help is on the way. We have our Council of Regional Presidents. Many of them are on the call tonight. And in 2018, we took the time to kind of restructure the Corp and really focus on 3 subcommittees that can extend the reach of EWB's limited staff resources to really engage volunteer leaders to help in the capacities of engaging, equipping, and cultivating volunteers. A lot of this goes hand in hand with what we heard in the survey responses. So by engaging, we are looking at this subcommittee to really establish a team of volunteers who are focused on connecting others with opportunities. We know we have a lot of needs across EWB, but sometimes we just need better communication and a way to get those needs across. And to ensure that we're leveraging the talents of not only engineers, but non-engineers that can help carry out this work. The Equip subcommittee will continue to promote our available e-learning opportunities, some of which Anna talked about tonight in JAV. And you know, we've got a lot going on with our educational programming. Kathy Leslie, the CEO of EWB, talked about this in her New Year's message. I linked it in the agenda that I'm in some of the documents that I'm referring to tonight. If you missed that communication, lots of stuff going on with our educational programming, and the Equip committee will be assisting with that, in the addition of developing 9 new educational courses in 2020. And then finally, the Cultivate subcommittee, where we're really focusing on a culture of appreciation, where people feel valued for the work that they do with EWB. And that's really, it's important. It's important that you feel good about what you're doing, you feel acknowledged, and you feel like you're getting the right resources and everything, but also that you're feeling valued in the work that you're doing. So again, I started with this and I'll end with it that this is by no means everything that's been done in 2020, but these are some of the highlights that I wanted to make sure everyone knows about. And I encourage you to check out that full volunteer experience survey where all the results are highlighted. So we're going to save, we've saved some time for the very end to make sure that we have Q&A. But next I'm going to turn it over to Eric Lemborg, who's on the ICP team. He's a program engineer. He's awesome. And he's going to be talking about cost share, which I think a lot of people have tuned in tonight for that very reason. So I'll turn it over to Eric at this time.
Great. Thanks, Jacqueline. Really appreciate all your help organizing this. And we are really excited that so many people have joined us tonight. Really what's going to make this cost sharing shift a success is your guys' feedback. That's a critical element to us being able to deliver an effective program and to address all the nuances that and the differences in everyone's program. So one thing we definitely want to get across is that we want your feedback. It matters to us. We're going to continue incorporating it into our future planning. So thanks to everyone that went ahead and posted some questions tonight. I went ahead and summarized those into general themes, and I'll talk about those. If you feel like your question didn't get addressed, the best way to go about finding your answer is to get a hold of your program engineer. All case-by-case decisions or exceptions to kind of the standard rules that we're laying out in the FAQ will only be approved by talking to your program engineer. So that's going to be a theme you'll see in a lot of the answers. So be sure to reach out to us with those questions. We definitely need to be able to make this work, we need to know your budget and schedule, even if it's preliminary, so that we can be able to make our best estimates for our cost share projections. So yeah, we'll get started with the first question. So the first question is, you can go ahead and update that slide. What is the schedule for the 2020 cost share? When will funds be available? So this is a common question that we've been getting. We are still on track to the schedule that we set forward in those initial calls back in third and fourth quarter last year, and we are still looking at April for the initial point in time when we'll begin transferring funds to chapter accounts. We're working on a few administrative changes on our end that will make that possible. So we have sent out everyone's cost share. So if you haven't received your cost share numbers yet, definitely reach out to your program engineer, and we'll begin making those funds available in April. We are still going to have a very detailed communication about the steps, about how you're going to process and request those funds, be sent to, be wired to either in-country partners, contractors, or accounts for reimbursement. Just a general reminder that we are, definitely in a transition year. And so for this first year, we'll be primarily doing reimbursements. So we know this isn't ideal and that it'd be better to have the money up front. But as we work through this transition year, we're hoping that, going forward, we'll be able to have everything in place to be able to have those funds available at the time when your technical plans are approved. But for this year, please bear with us, and we'll be working on reimbursements beginning in that April timeframe. Feel free to keep, if there's any kind of additional questions about any of these that I'm going through, feel free to use the chat function. I'm watching right now. So if there's any additional clarifications that you guys need on these questions, feel free to add them there, and I'll try to address them and wrap them up at the end. Yeah, so that's the first general theme that we saw in those questions. The second question was how to update your budget and schedule projections. So we are working on a change to Volunteer Village that will allow you to be able to have more visibility into what you reported during that call as far as your budget and schedule projections. We definitely want your updates. We want to know what's changed. We know that it's often difficult to project what's going to happen over a year into the future. And so there's nothing wrong with having any changes to your schedule or the budget on your projects. But we do want to know that so we can help to adjust our cash flow and to adjust our methodology going forward for future years. So definitely, if you need to make those changes, the best way is to discuss those during your either existing calls with your program engineer, or go ahead and schedule calls at any time. We love to hear from our project teams that we're working with. So definitely feel free to always reach out to us. Those updates to Volunteer Village will be coming in that same time frame as the moving of the project funds to your chapter accounts, and we'll have plenty of details on those changes. And they should really simplify your experience working with Volunteer Village and address a lot of the other concerns that we're hearing. Go ahead to the third one. So the third question that we've been hearing is, what if there's a change in the project that requires additional funds? So one of the things we did with our cash flow or with our cost share modeling was we went through and tried to optimize the amount of money that was going to each team. We tried to reserve as little money as possible to make sure that you guys were getting the maximum amount from the cost share that was approved by the board. We did reserve a portion of this for eventualities that came up on projects, emergencies, those kind of things that we'd want to address during the year. So we do have a very limited amount of reserve money that we've set aside to address kind of changes in scope, changes, emergency needs where we need to step in and get things done to make sure projects get done right. So beginning in the late second quarter, we will be starting to evaluate those on a case-by-case basis. So the best way is to get a hold of your PE, let them know if that time scale or amount has changed, or if there's additional needs that you have, and we can get you on that list to be evaluated for that potential money. Again, it's a very limited amount, and we're hoping that in future years we'll be able to potentially increase that reserve. That's one of the things we'll be closely monitoring this year, is the number of cases where there's a kind of drastic change in the budget that would require some reserve funds, and make adjustments of whether we need to increase or decrease that reserve account. It looks like there's a couple questions coming in. If Polly or Lisa, you want to summarize those, it looks like Melissa's answering them, but feel free to let me know if any of those needs to be discussed on the audio. The fourth question that we got commonly was, what if we have a new project? So we specifically budgeted money in the amount that was allocated by the board to be used for new projects. What will come down to, if there's a cost share from that fund, will be whether you're planning to travel for that new project in 2020. So we're anticipating a lot of the new projects that are coming in right now. You'll likely be traveling in the summer or the winter, maybe even the early summer. So we have a process for those. We'll be finalizing the process this week, and during your kickoff call with your program engineer for the project, we will discuss the budget and schedule projections, just like we've been doing for the existing projects. And so we have some money available for cost share for new projects that will travel in 2020. If your travel is back into 2021, you'll be evaluated later in the year for allocations from the 2021 budget. Okay. Question 5. Okay, question 5 is, can the cost share be used for other projects? What if the project is closed or transferred? So there was a couple very specific questions that came forward in the agenda about this. The best way to go through those is to talk to your program engineer. But in general, the money stays with the project until it closes. So if a project is transferred or if the chapter is unable to complete the work and it needs to be done by the country office, the cost share amount will stay with that project until it closes. If a project closes because it's no-go'd after an assessment trip or at some other time, the money will go back to the general reserve account and be distributed in the year. What we're trying to do is just get money allocated as quickly as possible to be used in the current fiscal year. And sixth question. Process. Okay, so what's the process for 2021 and beyond? So there was a couple questions on, what if an activity that was slated for, let's say December of this year of 2020 actually moves back to 2021. That's perfectly okay. It's the same as kind of the question before. The money stays with the project. So what we asked you to do during the call was to give us your earliest possible travel projection. And so if the activity moves back and the project's still on schedule or still on track, then the money won't be returned. It will stay with your team to make sure that you have the ability to plan and count on that money to execute your project. Anything that we will, if new activities are brought up for 2021, those will be evaluated in about August. So we'll have similar questions to last year, with similar calls to last year, where we'll reach out to everyone and talk about what your plans and costs are for 2021, and use those as we go to get approval from the board for the cost share. So anything that gets pushed back into 2021 will be evaluated as an activity in 2021. If you had money assigned in 2020, that will be factored in to that decision making. Great. Those were the questions that I summarized. It looks like a couple questions came in as well. Will the money be available through the same format it currently is? Yes. So for the most part, money will be accessed, and the April or the additional communication coming out in April will have a lot more detail about this. But basically, because it's reimbursement, it's on the expense report. So it will be basically you'll get 100% of whatever the expense report comes in at. So it won't have the 75-25 breakdown that's for advance requests. Does the general reserve account refer to chapter general account or the organization general account? Yeah, so when we talked about the money for closed projects going back to the general account, that's back to the organization's general account. And we'll use that process that I talked about where we evaluate all of the additional spending that came up in like emergencies or adjustments as reported by chapters, and evaluated on that amount. So we're going to hopefully have any money for closed projects go back into that pool to be spent by on other priorities. Any other questions? Did I miss anything that came across in the chat? Okay, I think I had one more wrap-up slide, and I'll give a few more seconds to anyone if you have any kind of last-minute questions on this. Oh, nope, I didn't have any wrap-up slides. So, last call for questions. Feel free. I think we might have some additional time at the very end. So, if you have any other questions, if you didn't feel like your question got answered that you posted, reach out to your program engineer. Thanks everyone for bearing with us in this transition year. We're so excited to get going on this this change and to get money flowing to help the communities that we all care about. So thank you so much. And I think the next one is going.
Hi, everyone hear me? Just one person to confirm, make sure I'm off mute. Yay, awesome.
Yep, I can.
Fantastic, thanks so much. My name is Lindsay Broderick. I'm currently serving as the chair of the Council of Regional Presidents. So I'm just going to talk quickly about NCES and becoming licensed. So I am a licensed engineer in the state of California. I did the civil exam, civil structural exam. And so just like a little brief history about my journey, I ended up taking the first fundamentals of engineering when I was in college. And then I was practicing and working in Massachusetts, moved to California, and discovered that in addition to the NCES national exam, I also had to take 2 other exams. So that was quite a shock, but I made it through that, and I am now a licensed BE. My background is in structural engineering, specifically working in building design. So for me, licensing was a bit of a no-brainer in my field and in my discipline in particular. It's really required. And I also will eventually be wanting to sit for my structural engineer license as well. But I think, getting my license has really opened up additional career opportunities for me. Especially within structural engineering, there's definitely kind of a ceiling that you can hit if you do not have your license, which might not be the same for other disciplines or other kinds of engineering. But for me, it was really, really important to do. And also within EWB USA, I think, just within EWB has given me a little more confidence when it comes to doing designs. We do, in my chapter, have a couple of structural projects, and I have worked on some small structural scope in the past. So it's really given me a little bit of more opportunity to really delve into some of that design. In terms of broader experience and, how licensing kind of intertwines with EWB opportunities, like having your license would provide you opportunities to become a engineer in charge, especially if it has a structural or bridge scope in particular. That we also have domestic volunteer opportunities with the Community Engineering Corps. There's also opportunities within the Engineering Service Corps, which has kind of a consulting type model. Some other opportunities include chapter membership, and just in general becoming more of a subject matter expert. So EWB USA is teaming up with NCSS to just kind of spread the word about the importance of getting your license and if it fits for you. So if you're not licensed, I would definitely encourage you to think about if it fits with you, if it makes sense for you, and also, understanding what your company supports. And if you are licensed, definitely keep that information updated in Volunteer Village, and keep an eye out for opportunities that come up. Yes, and I do see on the chat, Tom said, take the fundamentals of engineering during your senior year of college. And I totally agree with that. I would say definitely take it as early as possible. I did procrastinate a little bit and I semi-regretted it. I got through it and everything's fine. But I would definitely say take it as early as possible and when you remember those things. So it's definitely way easier to take it as a student. All right, and I believe I'm turning it back over to Jacqueline.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lindsay, and thanks for that personal testimony. Always good to hear.
This is Gerard. Can I chime in on that?
I'm sorry?
Jacqueline, this is Gerard. Can I chime in on that, on the licensure a little bit?
Go for it. Yes, please do. I'm not sure if
Sure.
you're
I advise people to take the fundamentals in engineering exam as early as possible. Take it in your junior year so that if for some reason you don't pass it, you can take it in your senior year. And the question that I've gotten quite often is, why do I need to take this test? There are many disciplines that don't require this test. Civil engineering absolutely requires this test, but other disciplines do not. But if you take the fundamentals in engineering exam early on, you will be setting yourself up to take the professional engineering exam after you have the required experience. So keep your options open. Keep your options open whether you want to become a professional engineer licensed. Again, in civil engineering, it's a must. It's a great career move. But in any other mechanical, electrical, they're not as rigorous sometimes as civil engineering. But I would say keep your options open so that you can have this credential such that you prove that you are a professional engineer. That's what I would say to many of the people out there. And I just appreciate the chance to chime in on that.
Thank you so much, Gerard. All right, so we are wrapping up the agenda today. We've talked about all kinds of things, and thanks so much for everyone tuning in. Sorry, tricky hand over here. We wanted to save the last couple of minutes to address any questions that we had, which we have two that Eric's going to speak to, and then to wrap up the evening. So Eric, if you can just state the questions that you saw on chat and respond to them, and then I'll wrap up.
All right, great. Thanks, Jacqueline. So the last couple of questions that came in were about the 2020 versus if 2020 funds carry into 2021. So if you guys don't end up spending all of your cost share money from 2020, it will stay with your chapter account, so you can keep using that in 2021 as long as the project still stays active and doesn't close. The other one that came in was about cost share or cost data and estimation data. So I don't know if everyone knows, but we have a brand new program engineer in Denver, and we're excited to welcome Scott Gregory, who will be eventually starting to transition to take over some of Melissa's projects. And so we're very excited to welcome him. He's also going to be working closely with us on improving our cost estimation strategy going forward and trying to make as much of that data usable to chapters working in the same disciplines and areas. So we're going to definitely be working on providing additional cost estimation resources for you. That looked like the last two that came in. So yeah, go back to you, Jacqueline.
Well, thanks everyone. Again, first town hall meeting buzz. So really excited to have this opportunity to talk with all of you. We've talked a lot about the purpose of this, the purpose of the town hall, and we would just want to encourage you to continue to keep the conversation rolling. So that comes about in a couple of different fashions. First, there's opportunity to make adjustments. We're not quite sure that we have this right, so please add to the agenda that we've provided in advance. Tell us about content that you're wishing to see. Email us at volunteer@ewbusa.org. Contact your program engineers if you've got specific questions about cost share. But certainly we would like to have these sessions for you and created by you, you know, with the content that you're really wishing to hear. So I'm actually going to try to do another thing here and relaunch a poll. Um, that might not be working in my favor tonight. Okay, so, oh, here we go. All right, so I think if I did it correctly, you should see a poll on your screen if you're logging in by computer that says satisfaction. And I'd just really like to hear, we'd all really like to hear from you if this was helpful. And helpful meaning, was this relevant information? Was the content interesting? Was it something that you wanted to hear? And how about the delivery? And then you can provide more information to us. We've talked about the agenda and providing some more input that way. The chat feature, hopefully we've been good about responding to that. The volunteer at, and then to a program engineer. So with all these different mechanisms, we're really just hoping to hear from you and make these the most meaningful sessions that we can. Town Hall Buzz. These are happening every other month. The next one will be April 16th, same time, 5:30 p.m. Mountain State Time. And we really hope that we have double the attendance next time. We had about 80 people log in for this session, which we're excited about. And we hope to double that number, triple that number as we move forward, knowing that this is really a session that is meant for you, and hoping to keep the dialogue running. So again, thanks so much, everyone, and look out for this information to be included in Volunteer Village in the e-learning tab, and spread the buzz. Please tell other people about this important communication. We hope that more people log in next time. And just looking at our results here, we see that a lot of people found this extremely helpful, somewhat helpful. Hey, and 0% of people said not helpful at all. So that's I think that's a step in the right direction. So again, thanks everyone so much, and we hope to see you again in April.